Don't
Dreaming.
give it up, Bradley.
Don't
Hey,
give it up, Bradley.
we've summoned the
Um,
boy.
yeah, I hope you guys have been singing the song every day.
It's right before you do your nightly prayer. Make sure to sing "Don't
Yeah.
Dream It Up," Bradley.
Jesus Christ.
For those of you who were with us last time, which is hopefully all of you,
And more.
we ended our One Piece discussion last week, on the second to last chapter of Volume 25, where we get the Blackbeard reveal, and by Blackbeard reveal I mean we find out who Blackbeard is, which is just such a cool moment.
What chapter are we on, Bradley? I'm sorry, I was looking at something else.
Yeah, so now we're going to be on chapter 235, the knockup stream.
Yeah.
I think last week I had decided to split like right before this chapter because like we had just done like the 2 or 3 chapters of like international stuff, and then I saw this chapter is called the knockup stream, and I'm like, okay, we're about to actually begin this arc, so I thought that would be a good cutting point.
And you were really close. You were like one chapter. Like it does like pretty much.
Yeah.
Jaya ends on this chapter basically.
Also, we have a sort of new, but not really that new format this week. I think it's just a little bit more
Streamlined.
because usually we kind of do a like a play-by-play of
chapter.
Virtually like chapter by chapter, or sometimes even page by page, which is fun because pretty much every page of One Piece is good. However, usually after like an hour and 15 minutes of that, I'm going to be feeling a little bit burnt out, and I don't know if the listeners are too. I think what we're going to do this week will let us kind of focus on the good parts a little bit more. And what I did is, as I went through this week, I would put sticky notes on pages that had something I particularly want to talk about. So for each chapter, we'll still kind of be like, oh, you know, this is what the chapter was about. But rather than talking about like literally every panel, each of us can just kind of bring up like moments in the chapter that we like.
One thing about this is, as we're going page by page, we feel kind of forced to say stuff more often. With this, I think with Bradley just skipping to his sticky notes, it could shave off like 10 to 20 minutes and kind of get our timing perfect, at least.
Yeah, I think this is going to be better in just about every way.
It's kind of what we did with Worm, where we're trying to hit all the good points and not over fatigue.
Because like when we did that format for Worm, like we cut down the talks by like at least 30 minutes, and I think they're more enjoyable to do and listen to now.
Worm talks
I think we're kind of doing the same for One Piece. So this week we're starting with chapter 235, the knockup stream. And in chapter 235, it is basically Luffy coming back from having done the just punchiest of punches on Bellamy. He rendezvous with the crew, and in this chapter, they are making their way to the knockup stream. Some moments I noticed in this chapter that I kind of wanted to bring special attention to. Where's my first sticky note? There we go. So on one of the pages where they are actually sailing into the knockup stream, and of course they're being chased by Blackbeard's crew because he saw Luffy's bounty, and you know, he's chasing Luffy, which first of all, I wanted to talk about that. This is a town where there are multiple people with like 30, 40, 50, 60 million dollar bounties. And Blackbeard was just kind of chilling in this town. But he actually really chases after Luffy, which is how we know that like $100 million is nothing to sneeze at. Like that is not typical.
Dollars.
Yeah, that is big dollars.
And as we know from the world government part, Lafitte, the top hat man, he was saying you're gonna know about Blackbeard soon.
Oh yeah.
And this is how Blackbeard's trying to make a name for himself, and 100 million berry is a perfect way to do that.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god, he captured the 100 million berry pirate who shut down one of the 7 warlords of the sea. He's a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
So on one of these pages where they're both being chased by Blackbeard. They're kind of sailing into the knock-up stream, and I kind of wish that every page had page numbers so I know what page I'm talking about. But Nico Robin is... But there's a brief moment where Robin turns around to Nami and she says, "Navigator, what about the log pose?" And I think this was like a very purposeful choice on Oda's part, where she calls Nami Navigator rather than Nami. And obviously it's not because she doesn't know Nami's name. They know each other and they've interacted fairly frequently. But I think this just kind of reinforces that Robin is still very new to the crew. She probably hasn't been in the crew more than a week at this point. And in tense situations like this, she probably more immediately recognizes people as their roles rather than their names.
I've read that. I've always seen this a different way. She was in an organization of secret code names for a long time. And I've always thought that this was her still easing in to the idea of calling people by their names.
Yeah, I like that interpretation too.
Bradley, this is my Robin degeneracy coming out.
Oh boy.
Oh, God.
Keep that in mind. Yeah, keep that in mind until the end of the next saga.
Yeah.
So just keep this. Just know whenever she says someone's name versus when they call them their role.
But yeah, I'm really glad you caught that, Bradley. That's really cool.
Yeah. I really like that because
not very, but it's I think important to her character.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, so that way I can like keep searching for that.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about it before. I know in Alabasta, there were some moments where I was talking about where Oda has like very purposeful word choices. And I felt like this was one of those moments, so I wanted to highlight it. And then I turned the page, and we get this like 2-page spread of the whirlpool that leads down to the knock-up stream. And at the bottom, we see each of the Straw Hats reacting to their imminent demise. And it's not really that there's any like hidden meanings or analysis here. I just really love this because each of their reactions are so them. Like Luffy's so excited, and like Zoro's just like, "Oh God, well here we go." Like, just freaking out. And like even for Nami, like she's also freaking out, but it's her words. She's like, no one said anything about this because she likes having a plan.
Yeah,
she likes to know what's going to happen. So each of the reactions are just Oda just knows his characters, is what I'm trying to say.
I wanna. That's just something to keep in mind, and something that's we might not bring mention to it every time it happens. But this first half of Skypeia is chocked full of moments of like 5 or 6 or 7 of the Straw Hats all having a reaction on the same page, or like small conversations. This arc is really good at like showing you their character in different situations, because they're about to run into a variety of very different situations that they're used to, and you get a lot of comedic or very telling moments of their personalities.
This arc is also kind of like the first arc in a while where the Straw Hats aren't necessarily like part of someone else's adventure, where like all of the Alabasta saga really feels like the Straw Hats are part of Vivi's kind of quest to reclaim her kingdom. This is the Straw Hats doing Straw Hats.
Yeah. So and we're really back to just like our boys doing their own thing. And like Wheeler said, like I don't know at what point during my reading this past week I had this thought, but I did kind of notice that thing you said where it seems like there's even more moments than usual where it's like just the Straw Hats interacting with each other.
Yeah.
So I guess the last like big sticky I put in for this volume was a few pages later, and I'm kind of having to remember why I put these stickies down as I go to the page.
You can do this, Bradley.
But basically it's this page where I think it's like immediately before they get knocked up in the knock up stream. This page has like a big smiling Luffy on half of it, and
Oh, yes.
basically there's a brief moment where Usopp is like, no, like when faced with death, he's like, oh my god, no, the Sky Island isn't real. Like this whole thing, there's no way. We have to turn around. And what he says to Luffy is, the Sky Island is a dream in a dream. He's like, it's not real, but we know what the idea of dreams is to Luffy. So when Luffy hears a dream in a dream, he's like, oh, well, now we gotta do it. he loves it. So
that Luffy, so this character is really showing you certain aspects of certain characters very prominently, on top of like all those smaller moments with them. The big one with this is Luffy and adventure. He mentions so many times how he wants to go adventure, how he doesn't care about the consequences, he just wants to have fun with it, he knows he can handle himself. And this is kind of the starting point of it. There's a ton of that.
So the rest of this chapter is basically them getting knocked up into the knock up stream, and that was my last sticky for this volume, unless you guys had anything else in this chapter.
I have two things. I want to talk about Blackbeard's ship real quick. It's
kind of that like log raft.
Like, yeah, let's not mince words. He's sailing on a raft.
He's got to make a name for himself.
You're really getting this rags to riches vibes from him, where he's out here busting his ass, sailing on rafts, trying to get a motley crew together, trying to make a big name for himself. Just something to note. Like, I've always really loved that aspect of him starting off on a raft.
I didn't even consider that.
In fact, the knock-up stream destroys his raft. So it's like he just picks himself back up, and like they're floating on a single log by the end of it. Lastly is how much this arc has Nami focus and how important she is to the crew. Her sailing up the knock-up stream and getting the crew together in order to succeed that impossible task. I think that's a really good moment to just make us remember why Nami is so incredible outside of her combat.
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing that too, because for a lot of the last like saga of One Piece, like the majority of the Alabasta arc, they usually know where they're going and how to get there. So the role of navigator kind of got put into the background.
Yeah.
But now they're back into the unknown, so they're going to be relying on Nami very heavily.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. I think we might be shutting the cover on volume 25 here.
We are indeed. We're 12 minutes into the first two chapters. We killing it, boys.
Oh yeah. And then we open up volume 26, which one thing I commented to Willer about is Oda's now drawing Luffy with substantially more abdominal muscles now. And I think he said like this is him maybe kind of like finalizing his design. I know he does draw a lot of the characters very differently than he did like 20 volumes ago.
Definitely, yeah.
Yes.
I feel like this is the Luffy design we will see for a while.
Yeah. So we open this volume up, and the first chapter of this volume is still them up in the knock-up stream. And they eventually finally land in the clouds where they're promptly assaulted. And my first sticky, let's see what I put this on top of. It's like opening presents.
Ooh.
So, oh man, so this is great. It's Blackbeard's crew kind of commenting on the fact that the Straw Hats got away. And we got to talk a lot about how both similar and different Luffy and Blackbeard are last week, and how while they differ in pretty much all of their tastes, one kind of uniting factor is kind of how driven they are towards their goals and how much stock they put in ambition or dreams. And I think another really interesting thing here is when they're talking about how the Straw Hats got away, and it kind of zooms out on the sea, and I believe it's Blackbeard who says, if our will is strong, we'll meet them again.
Yes.
Which is something Luffy would say, because even if he doesn't have a practical reason to believe that, it's good enough for Luffy. Like, it reminds me of when Ace gave Luffy the paper, and he's like, if you just hold on to this paper, we'll meet again. And Luffy's like, well, it works for me. So it's kind of like Blackbeard. That's just another quality he has in common with our main character. He's like, well, if we just really, really want to meet them again one day, we will. And that's all he needs.
I'll take a moment to also point out that this exact same panel has the crew bantering in their different personalities with Blackbeard's line here. Much like when Luffy says something dumb about dreams, each Straw Hat will have their own take on it. So that's pretty neat.
Man, I like going forward. I really want to see more Blackbeard, because I think he's just like a really. I think one of you guys last week said like Blackbeard's introduction is one of the most like obvious ways to set up a foil to a character.
It's both a genius and in your face way to set up.
Oda doesn't want any kind of like
ambiguity.
Yes, he's like, this person is Luffy, but not.
Yeah. So I'm just like really excited to see what more they have in common, and
it's a bummer that
he have not in common in the future.
It's a bummer that he dies off screen right there, like a Sea King eats them.
Oh yeah, you know, he had a good run.
Yeah.
And then a few pages later, Usopp tries to swim in the clouds, right? And he throws his fist into the clouds after him, and Robin uses her fruit to put eyes all over Luffy's arm, which, one thing that is even so much more cool to me than a cool ability is cool synergies between abilities.
Ooh, that's one of the best things. There's a lot of cool synergies in One Piece.
Yeah, like this is just the coolest. She's like, oh, well, if you just throw your arm, then I can see over there. And then it's like, oh, well, I can't make my arms go over there, but if you throw your arm out, then I can just make a bunch of arms and we can just grab Usopp. And like, it's really cool. I really love synergies like this.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just thought everyone had to know about that. And then they're soon after attacked by this, like, I was about to say sea monster, which I guess you would call it a sea monster, but it's like a sky sea monster because they're in the White Sea. There's the White Sea and the White Sea, right?
Yes.
Okay, they're in the White Sea right now.
Sky Sea Monster is exactly what they would call it, because I was noticing it's just like, oh, it's a sky shark and a sky fox and a sky blank.
Yeah, and like, it's really cool because this is like a tremendous monster, and Zoro's like, oh, well, fuck it, we gotta go fight it. And he cuts it, and its tentacle like explodes, and my first thought was, holy shit, when did he get this strong? But then we find out that the monster was actually kind of hollow, like a balloon.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about how, like, a normal fish isn't going to be able to swim in these clouds. Like, all the creatures up here, maybe not all of them, but a lot of them are like balloony, kind of, so that they can float up here. And I just thought it was really cool.
Oda will go every step to make his world fun and as believable as he can.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the balloon fish things. And then they get attacked by a Majora's Mask boss, or whatever you would call this guy. He's wearing like a tribal mask, and he's really cool. And then he gets destroyed by the Sky Knight, who I think looks awesome.
Gone 4.
And then we move on to chapter 238, Heaven's Gate. But I should also comment on the fact that we have a new between chapter story going on.
I was wondering when you were going to mention this.
Yeah, with Wapple, and most of the first instances of it is just him eating things, and
it's just kind of funny. Like, each little chapter is called "I Eat Blank."
Yeah, I eat lamps, which I don't know, sounds like a TLC show or something. But we move on to the next chapter, and we get to, okay, I had a sticky on this page. I was trying to find out why I put it here. I think it's really cool that, we kind of have to find a way to challenge our characters, because when we show how strong they are, if we're gonna have people who can beat them in fights, we need at least some reason to believe that person could beat our character in a fight. And we saw Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji. I was about to say Usopp. I don't know. We saw like our three kind of heavy hitters just get thrashed, and they're like, man, we just were not at the top of our game there. What's going on? And the Sky Knight kind of explains that Blue Sea people, that tends to happen to them because you're really high up. There's not going to be a lot of oxygen, and you're just probably going to get exhausted really easily, I think is kind of what they're saying.
Mm-hmm. Of course, it won't take long for these three to adapt. I'm interested to see if they square off with Majora's Mask again.
Yeah, they get acclimated pretty quickly in this arc. I just think initially it was a good way to have them like believably get thrashed by their first opponent. But I think in a few chapters they've kind of adjusted a little bit better. So this chapter is kind of a small amount of an info dump by the Sky Knight, because obviously our people don't know anything about Skypeia. Like they weren't even 100% sure it existed until recently. And so we skip forward a few pages and we see that the Sky Knight, his bird is a devil fruit user. And I just really liked this small little panel where Chopper realizes the bird is a devil fruit user. And I think it's interesting that Oda zoomed in on Chopper specifically and his look of surprise, just because I think it's funny that this bird and Chopper are both animals and they both have the same type of fruit. So I think it makes sense that he would be like, oh, whoa, whoa.
A monster like me.
Yeah, and there's not really anything deeper to this. It's just
neat.
Yeah, like when it's just another thing where it's like everything Oda does was a deliberate choice on his part. So considering how many members of the Straw Hats there are, it's very purposeful that he chose Chopper to be the one like, ooh.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a polka dotted Pegasus. And
something seems off.
It looks badass is the word that I'm sure everyone would use to describe it.
Definitely.
And then we get to, shortly after this, they get to Heaven's Gate, which I was talking to Willer about this, how I think it's really cool that there's a toll for Heaven's Gate, and they're like, oh, well, we don't have money. I guess we can't go through. And she's like, oh, no, you can go through. Like, you can totally go through Heaven's Gate. Like, you don't have to pay to get through. They're just going to try and arrest you when you go inside. Like, no, you can come in.
I'm an old lady. I'm not going to enforce this, but you go in and you're a criminal, so just have fun.
She's like, you can go ahead. It's not my job to stop you, but people are going to stop you.
I love Luffy's elation that he's going to heaven. He's just having such a fun time in Skypiea.
Oh, dude, he loves it. Which I probably would too, especially considering like the scene that they're about to see. I'm just like, oh my gosh, that would probably be the coolest looking place in the world.
It's definitely worth checking out that chapter in the colored manga version, because like the colors in Skypiea are really pretty.
Yeah, I remember you saying like,
yeah,
that's something that definitely has to be checked out. And then King Wapple eats a bench. Oh god. Imagine sitting on that.
He's ruined the state.
And then
yeah.
Whew, god. And then we move on to chapter 239, which they kind of traverse the, what is it? I think they don't name it right now, but this is the Milky Road, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they see, and I think this is where they get their confirmation that they actually are in Skypiea.
Yeah.
Because there's like a sign up next to the hole that's like, hey, you're in Skypiea. And then they see Skypiea, and it is the coolest thing ever. So they're kind of floating on the ocean, deciding like, okay, do we get off the boat? What do we do here? Do we go run down onto the beach? And Nami takes off her shirt, and I'm mostly commenting on this. Well, there's two reasons I'm commenting on it. One is because you know exactly why they put this on the volume cover. And number two, it sets up for a really funny joke with Sanji later.
Yeah, good setup. This whole beach scene is just delightful.
Yeah. As everyone's kind of running out onto the beach to enjoy it, I think like the last two to get off the boat are Robin and Zoro. And there's been a lot of moments in the past like 2 volumes where it'll be these two alone, whether they get separated up into the group or they just kind of lag behind. Because at this point, every time that Zoro's kind of commented on Robin, to some degree, it's been about how he can't 100% trust her yet. And you can even kind of see this in his expressions towards her. I think she's kind of indifferent to how he feels about her, but he definitely still feels on edge to me, and I don't know what you guys think about that.
Definitely, and but also like you can see a little bit of bonding here, or just she's expressing something that he finds curious, which is just she's never really had an idea of adventure like exploring new lands. It just makes you think like, what kind of life have you gone through? Like I want to learn more about Robin's mindset when I hear her say stuff like this.
She has been someone who for I don't know how many years, if she's going somewhere, it's because she has a mission.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the Straw Hats adventuring, like borderline aimless. They go where they are interested in going.
That's a really good way to put it. Being aimless is foreign to her, and she seems to be enjoying the concept.
Yeah. It's really cool. And this is also, even though this is like extremely short, like less than a page, it's still probably more like banter or just talking than they've had before, these two.
Mm-hmm.
So I really do think that Zoro is opening up to her. And I don't know what it is about these two characters as a combo that jumps out to me so much, but I don't know. I really like it.
Definitely feels like Oda setting something up.
Yeah. So we jump to everyone kind of having fun on the beach, and we meet
Conus.
Is it Conus or Conus?
I think it's Conus.
Conus, and she, like, these people are like actually angels, right? These wings aren't just their clothes, right?
Yeah, they are a race of human-like people with wings.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And she and her dad are just like the nicest people.
They're so nice, man. She immediately befriends them. She's probably used to having a couple of like blue seers over here, and she's probably like guiding them around and stuff like that.
Yeah, because like I imagine people like if Heaven's Gate always pops you out here, she probably gets to meet Blue Sea people whenever they come that way. So she's like, "Oh, yay!" She probably has in mind that she's going to be meeting people like this sometimes. So I don't know. It's just a lot of fun.
And to note that it doesn't seem that rare for Blue Sea people to show up, because they also mention there's an alternate route that you can get in. I don't think they explain it, but clearly there's a way for Blue Sea people to get here.
Yeah, it's not like a once every 100 years deal. Like clearly people get up here.
Yeah.
And then King Wapple eats a town. That's I don't know, man. I'm really interested to see where this like side story is going.
This side story has a mystery panel that stumped me and Joe for ages.
Oh man,
it's a good time. I'm sure we'll get to it soon.
So then we go to this next chapter is just kind of the crew meeting the family and learning a little bit more about Skypeia, and it's really funny. Luffy gets on the waiver and he starts writing it, and I like this moment because I'm sure like a few chapters before this I commented to Willer like, I wonder if Devil Fruit users sink here like they do in the normal sea. And sure enough, they do.
Indeed.
And I was like, oh man, whenever I asked that, Willer's probably like, oh, just you wait.
It's
But
also really cool. Jumping a little bit ahead, we
yeah,
get the explanation for how these clouds are formed, right? And
yeah, he talks about how, you know, like minerals kind of get blown up into the air by like, I think like volcanic vents
Mhm.
and maybe even just evaporation. But like these minerals, they're going to include fragments of sea prism stone.
specifically, yeah, it's sea prism stone gets under a volcano and releases like a. They make up like some sort of material that it sends up, and that's what forms the two cloud structures that make up Skypiea.
Yeah, so since the White Sea is made up of like this type of cloud that contains sea prism stones,
And water.
it's gonna functionally be the same as falling in the ocean, which
Just
is
uh,
God, like Oda, holy shit.
that whole sea prism thing is such a brilliant little moment of like, how the fuck do these clouds even work? And then he explains it, and he's explaining it with completely made up concepts, but it feels so grounded and so thought out.
Yeah, I Oda knows what the fuck he's doing. Is
A
all I'm
little
saying.
bit.
And then the rest of this chapter is just kind of everyone having fun, getting to know each other. Sanji cooks some sky food, and then the chapter ends with Nami she happens upon the island that you are absolutely never ever supposed to go to, the domain of the Kami.
One thing I
Yeah.
want to bring up real quick,
Yeah.
on this track of showing how cool Nami is outside of combat, she immediately picks up the waiver. I thought that was a really cool way, and it feels really right with her personality. Um, and we won't dwell too much on the dials for time, but I think the dials are a really cool technology.
Yeah, like I feel like virtually everything in Skypiea works through these dials, and it's really cool that there's like different kinds, like ones that capture light and heat and stuff like that.
It makes you, it automatically answers the question. It's like, well, how do they sleep and cook and shit? You can just fill in the blank. They use dial technology. It's perfect.
Yeah. The next chapter opens up with Luffy being very excited because everything that these angels tell Luffy to scare him from going there just makes him more excited to go there. Like, what? There's a kami there. Oh, you're never ever ever supposed to go there. Oh, it's dangerous. Like,
I like how Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji are like, he's going to go there. Like,
yeah, like
'cause he's not gonna try.
they just know him. Like, there's 0% chance he's not going to go there. And we get a very we get kind of an extended sequence of these characters that I now know to be the Kami's vassals, attacking someone who I assume there's someone else kind of like Nami who ventured onto the island.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, they're strong, they're cool, nothing too impressive until freaking beam from the sky just annihilates this man.
We're gonna talk more about these beams, I'm sure, but just this idea of a god smiting you wherever you are is such a cool backdrop for the tyranny that's going on in Skypiea.
Yeah, it's interesting because like from the moment the word kami was dropped, I was like, okay, well,
How godlike can he really be?
yeah, I'm like, depending on the story you're reading, God can mean a lot of different things. But yeah, beam from the sky smiting someone. I was like, oh, this is really a kami right here.
This is that Old Testament shit right here. I like it.
Yeah, and pretty much as soon as she sees that, Nami GTFOs, and when we come back to the Straw Hats, they are confronted with the White Beret military force, which they look cool, and I feel like I just should also comment on the Skypiea greeting, which I guess is Hesso. I like it. It's fun.
Yeah.
And he also does a gesture where he makes like bunny ears behind his head, where you just assume that's like some kind of customary or like formal greeting up here. I don't know. It's just flavor.
Wapple's face when he's getting arrested is worth noting because he's like, "Hmm?"
Yeah, he is. That's a record scratch moment right there. And so the White Berets approach the Straw Hats by army crawling on the ground, and then they just stand right back up, which is fun. And then we kind of have this fun escalation where they're like, "Oh, you guys are trespassing in Skypeia. That costs this much money." And they're like, "Oh, well, we can't pay that money." It's like, "Oh, well, if you can't pay the money, that's a this level crime. You're coming with us." And they're like, "No, we're not." And it's like, "Well, if you don't come with us, that's going to be this level crime." And then they like start getting physical. It's like, "Oh, you've done it now. Now you're at this level crime."
Yeah.
And it's just hilarious.
It's also just quick way to see like the law system or the crime and punishment system here. You don't like really need to get the whole explanation, but just seeing these like 4 levels of crime, you can extrapolate how their day-to-day crime system goes.
Yeah. And it's also worth noting that like the reason that these crimes exists are apparently because they're like offenses against the commie.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of shows that like the commie really has this place by the balls.
You have to imagine once you get to a low enough level, you're gonna get smited.
Oh yeah. Like I think they got to class 2 eventually, and I imagine class 1 is just like you're gone.
Mm-hmm.
Nami gets back, and the Straw Hats are able to fight off the White Berets for now. With Luffy does Gum Gum fireworks,
which is rad.
Yeah, he always pulls out these new attacks, and they're always different and they're always fun. So the White Berets are like, "Oh, well, we don't even need to deal with you because the commie's vassals are going to deal with you." And that's pretty much that for that chapter. It's a lot more. There's a little bit more action there. So there wasn't a whole lot to say there. But dude, the drawing for chapter 243, we get to see King Dalton of the Cherry Blossom Kingdom, which it's just so nice to see our boy doing well.
He's the king now, and the kingdom has like proper name, and it feels nice and warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, it's just a really fun. Like I don't know if you call one drawing an epilogue, but that's what it feels like.
It's part of a. I mean, it's not even an epilogue, you know. Like One Piece is just a moving world, so this is just where they're at now. It's cool.
Yeah. So I really like the start of this next chapter, where like they kind of tell Nami that Luffy's planning on going to this island she just came from, and Nami does everything she can to warn him not to go. And the reason this is interesting is because Nami is someone who is like consistently very confident in Luffy's abilities. Like whenever they were at Mocktown, even though you'll have people with like, ooh, 50 million berry bounty, she's just like, "Luffy, what are you doing? Like, beat him up." She's like,
Yeah.
"Obviously you can beat him up." But when she returns from this island, she's like, "No, Luffy, you will not win. You will lose if you go there and fight those people." Like they are just too dangerous. And so like the fact that it's coming from Nami, it's like, holy shit.
Deliberate, like you said. I just want to point out in a moment of great paneling, Nami she's saying, "You're a genius, Luffy." She puts out her hand. You're like, what's this about? Like it's there building anticipation, and then you get this panel of her like continuously smacking him in the forehead as she like keeps lecturing him bubble by bubble. I just love when Oda does stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just like it feels really animated. Like you can almost hear this panel, and I don't know, it's just good. Oda's good at what he does. So I think they decide they're gonna set sail, and I think Luffy decides he's gonna set sail for the island anyway, and they know they can't really stop him. So everyone starts heading back to the boat, and I don't know. There's just I like you said, I think we're just getting interactions between every single character this arc, because like there's Chopper trying his hardest to climb up into the boat, and Robin's like, "Oh, I was gonna drop the ladder for you," and I don't know.
It's so simple and sweet, right?
Yeah, like I don't know if we've seen specifically those two even talk to each other yet, but this was just a fun little moment because like I don't know, she has like a genuinely helpful look on her face.
There's one I really want to bring up here. It's the page right after. It's Usopp talking about how he takes care of the Mary.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say? I'll let you go first if you got like a thing for that.
I didn't have anything in particular to say, but I think it is clear here that like Usopp has kind of been their woodworker, even though he explicitly says that he's not. And it kind of shows that like he kind of does this because someone has to do it, not necessarily because that's his calling in life.
There's a couple of layers to it, right?
Yeah.
So you got to remember who gave him the Mary. It was Kaya.
Oh man, I didn't even think about that.
So that ship is like really important to Usopp. Another level is that like Usopp's role in the crew is not always like the most important, so he helps out where he can and he takes ownership over it.
And his role is a lot more, I guess, nebulous compared to like Nami or Chopper or.
And he doesn't have the leadership of Zoro, you know, so it's like you
Yeah.
can't. And another thing,
or like the battle prowess. He's very much like on the ship and he's doing what he can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just really like it's a really simple moment to remind us of that and remind us of his tie with Kaya and the ship, right? And another thing is like when you look at it, look how cool like that they put the little wings on the Mary and she fucking flew up a geyser.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is like it's badass that like this little ship from the East Blue is out here in the Sky Islands. It also crashed into like Laboon. So it's like Usopp, like someone's got to be taking care of the ship, and it's cool how Oda's addressing it here while tying it back to Kaya and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
I just man, I didn't even think about the tie-in to the fact that this boat came from Kaya, so he just wants to take really good care of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of going on while everyone's preparing to sail away. They want to like do some last minute repairs, get food. And they head outside and they see that the Marigo is being abducted, and Sanji is mortified. The other people are mortified that the boat is being taken, but Sanji is mortified that Nami put on a t-shirt at MI. And it's funny because no one really like Usopp's like, is that really what's important here? And then like I think a few pages later, Sanji's like,
Why'd
no
you
one
do
ever
it?
answered my question. Why'd you put a t-shirt back on?
Sanji is very Bradley here.
He just I don't know. I was right there with him. But, yeah, the Marigo gets taken to the sacrificial altar, and it's going to be up to Luffy, Sanji, and Usopp to rescue them. Which
This is a fun trio, right? Like,
yeah, I was like, I don't know if we've gotten, I don't know when the last time this trio has gone on a mission together. So this will be fun.
This is an interesting group because you have two of the members of like the Monster Three, which is kind of like
the name for the three big fighters.
Right, Sanji and Luffy, and then you have Usopp, who is not a navigator, not like not an archaeologist, so he can't figure out where he is. He is kind of just like a weirdo in the bunch. But
additionally,
yeah,
Sanji can be fickle and like selfish and just a horn dog, so he can be like mean to the others when it comes to that. So
Yeah.
it's a group ready for some fun.
Yeah, and like usually when Luffy makes up his mind to do something, he's gonna do it. And I think like the only two people who have ever been able to rein him in, even sometimes, are Nami and Zoro.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know if Sanji or Usopp would be able to restrain Luffy from doing something.
They'll berate him, but that's about it.
So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this trio operates, and I really hope that Usopp like plays a pivotal role in defeating one of these vassals that I'm sure they're gonna have to fight.
Mm-hmm.
So we get a chapter where it's kind of this trio with Conus, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of walking through this Skypeia town, and at this point, everyone knows that they're trespassers in their land, and Conus is like very
Sketchy.
She's kind of very quiet and reserved in this chapter, and we find out why, I think, at the end of this chapter. But I remember thinking, like when this chapter started, I was like, man, like holy shit, like she's she's so nice. Like, because like even whenever she first met the crew, I was like, God, her and her dad are so welcoming. Um, and that was fine because I'm like, some people in One Piece are just really, really nice people. But I was like, man, like, even after she finds out they're criminals and like her and her father's well-being on the line, like, why is she still being so nice? Um, and then at the end of the chapter, we kind of see her break down that she was she she summoned the Special Lobster Express, which I just realized saying that in a serious tone felt really silly.
Only in One Piece, man. But yeah, no, this is a serious deal.
Could that be
Yeah.
our title?
Yeah, yeah.
As that was coming out of my mouth, I was like, I can't say this seriously and not sound like an idiot. But
No, but it is genuinely heartbreaking, right? You can see also the distress on her father's face. I think his name is Pug or Pepega,
something like that.
something like that.
But yeah, she was forced to do this top 10 anime betrayal because if she didn't, you know, and her father would probably also become targets to the kami and the vassals. So
This is really
she
setting
had-
up that. Sorry, go ahead.
no, you're good.
It's just really setting up that like Skypeia is a place where you don't get away with crimes.
Yeah, because this kami sees everything.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it's just insane. And then this next page after she tells them that, Luffy gets furious, and he is not someone who loses his cool easily. Like even if someone is fighting him, like even when he was getting the shit kicked out of him by Bellamy in the bar and he promised he wasn't going to fight, we didn't see him get this angry or upset, but like Sanji, Usopp, and Luffy get furious that, you know, she told them that because now she's going to be in trouble. And that's what makes Luffy mad. It's not him being in danger, it's his friends being in danger. So she endangered herself, and he's just like, why would you do that?
I like how you can also extrapolate that each one of them has like a slightly different reason for being mad at her.
Yeah.
Like you can picture Usopp's is more self-preservationalist, and Sanji's is like caring for a woman, but they're all also just being chivalrous at the same time. It's really cool.
And man, like they're right to be worried for her because almost immediately the kami tries to smite her.
Yeah, and
Just
Luffy.
that, like for like nothing. And this panel where Luffy is pulling her out of harm's way is one of my favorite panels in One Piece right now.
Ooh.
Because even in some of Luffy's most intense moments where like he's doing like the finishing move on someone who's hurt his friends, like anytime he's fighting or doing like stuff that could endanger his own life, a lot of times he looks like he's having fun with it. He gets upset sometimes, but I don't know, usually he seems a lot more chipper. But
Like, let's think of what comes to mind immediately is when he finishes off Wapple. He's like having a good time with it.
But like this panel, it's like primal and like a desperate maneuver. Like he's not. These are not careful movements. These are get us out of the way as fast as I humanly can. Like
Yeah.
it is. I just love it.
So I would say, like, just like going off what you said, like the Skypeia arc to me, and you might realize this as we go on, but like it feels like the first kind of like slight ramp up of like intensity in One Piece, compared to like Alabasta and everything. This feels like we're gonna raise the stakes just a little bit higher than an accelerated rate compared to last time.
Yeah, like as soon as we got to Mocktown and we saw a guy like get set on fire and thrown out of a window for virtually nothing, I was like, okay, there's like a little bit of a more intense tone to this arc, and then now we have like even more intense power levels in this arc.
I think you guys might be sleeping a little bit on the destabilization of a country and the sandstorms and a nuke that's gonna blow up almost everyone in the country. But you know, good point.
Oh no.
And
No one was in danger there.
omnipotent
I mean-
Kami is scarier. I will agree.
I mean this in like our main. This is like one of the first times in a while where our main character looks genuinely distressed about what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Even in Alabasta, Water Luffy's just yucking it up.
Yeah, you know, he's fighting a warlord of the sea, and he's like, I'm Water Luffy now. But I don't know, man. Just right now, that's like top 5 panels for me.
That's really cool that you would single that panel out. I like that.
Just him desperately getting her out of the way. I love it. And I think this is the moment where, like, they kind of now realize what they're dealing with, because Nami tried to warn them, but this is the first time they saw the Kami's power for themselves, and they're like, "Oh shit." She wasn't kidding. Sorry, I'm coughing. I'm eating pizza while I'm doing this, actually.
You're doing really good, actually, if you're eating pizza. What the fuck? How are you not chewing? Anyways, I do want to bring up the end of this chapter where Konus is like, everybody knows who you are. Please come back to us, Kami. Just very interesting, very mysterious.
Yeah, like, I was like, oh man, like, there's even more depth to this than I thought, which of course there is, because this is One Piece.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
really interested to find out what that's all about.
When you substitute the word Kami, like the line "Please come back to us, God" is really deep and heavy.
Yeah, holy shit.
But also, like, okay, yeah, we'll move on. No need for speculations yet.
So I want to go back one page, and there's this one page in the top right corner where Luffy's just like, I could care less about this country. I just care about my friends.
Yeah, that's Luffy, all right.
Yeah. I just think it's kind of interesting in contrast to like what they did on Alabasta and how they changed about that. Like, it still hasn't like given Luffy a higher sense of purpose. You know what I'm saying?
And,
like,
he's kind of a hypocrite because he's such a nice boy. He's gonna help the country out because there's good people in the country. But like, in his mind, he doesn't see it that way. He doesn't see himself as the savior that he actually is.
He doesn't. This will come into play much later, I think. It's a deeper theme of One Piece and allegiances to a group and allegiances to people. But that's something that we'll discuss probably way down the line that becomes more apparent.
Like, Luffy can say whatever he wants, but like you said, like, we know he would help these people.
Yeah.
And like, on the subject of Alabasta, like, you could probably say, like, Luffy probably viewed Alabasta as an extension of Vivi.
Yeah.
Like, if he's gonna
Toto.
like, helping his friend involves helping this country, and I imagine that would probably also extend to his new friends that he met in Skypeia. Like, I don't know, he wants the place they live to be a good place, I'm sure.
Not to mention adventure.
Oh yeah, you gotta have the adventure. King Wapple not looking so good right now, man. He is not looking so good.
This is going places. Yeah, he is.
Cover story is great.
Oh, poor guy. He has the funniest faces.
I like how he's still in his winter wear with that fucking hippopotamus skin or whatever. Yeah. Like, that's gotta be warm.
Oh, you hate to see it, but
shit happens, bitch.
Yeah, he's kind of a bitch.
Yeah,
but you know, I'm sure that he will grow to be a very lovable man.
Bradley, I have a question for you.
Yes.
You're faced with 4 doors called the Challenge of Swamp, Iron, String, and Ball. Which one do you choose?
That's our hypothetical for this week. I thought this was really cool. It just because I'm me, it reminded me of Bowser's Castle in Super Mario RPG. And I would just like argue with myself over which door to go into, because I'm like, oh, I don't know if I can beat that challenge. So I sat here, and obviously I can't know what's behind any of these doors. I just thought Challenge of the Iron sounded cool, so I was like, you know what, fuck it.
That's the last one I'd go into. Just on a name, I feel like
Challenge of the Iron. I'm probably
Ball would be the one I would pick. Like, String to me, like, Ball is of the one that's like the least threatening.
Yeah, you got to go with Ball, which they do. So
they totally go with Ball. And then shortly after they are confronted with these doors. We cut back to the crew, like the others who are at the sacrificial altar now. And I put a sticky note on this page. I'm trying to figure out why.
Is it Robin and Zoro leaving together? She's like, "Hey, can I come with you?" And he's like, "Yeah, if you don't get in my way." I believe it's this page. Actually, that might be.
I thought maybe I thought we were on the panels beforehand, and there's the three of them lined up next to each other, reacting to what's happening to Zoro. And
I love that. I love how Robin says, "If you'd been eaten, the clouds could have turned into red." This is the second time now where she has like a very dry, morbid reply that freaks everyone out. The first time was like, "Oh, what if Usopp just falls through the sea?"
Yeah, that's the panel that I had put the sticky note on, and I mean it's good, so I guess that's why I put my sticky note on it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, they kind of take a moment to get their bearings and figure out where they're gonna go, and yeah, Zoro and Robin gonna head out, and Zoro of course has to do the cool guy. Sorry, I don't pray to the kami.
Zoro's a Redditor.
Yeah, so I was like, I guess it is a Zoro thing to say.
Yeah,
so.
No, he makes it work.
Yeah, and of course I was happy that Robin went with him. I hope they I don't know. I don't know. I just really hope they get more moments.
This is another fun trio that we're getting here.
Yeah, and then
I think my favorite part though is Chopper realizing that he's in the most danger of them all.
Yeah, because he's like, oh, they have to go out there and fight the dangerous stuff. I'll stay here and protect the boat all by myself. Wait a minute. Oh, it's so good.
I like how the chapter ends on that too.
Oh yeah, it's so good. And then we go to chapter 246, which immediately opens up with the four vassals, and I'm like, holy shit. But yeah, the people, our boys have to decide which door they're gonna go through, and oh yeah, I think they had the same reasoning you guys did, where Ball's the most harmless sounding, so we'll go in there. And I don't know, it's just really fun because they're like, oh man, wouldn't it suck if we fell down to the sea? And then you turn the page, Oda, master of the page flip, and then it's like, they're like, holy shit, we're actually falling.
Usopp's teeth.
Dude, yeah, I giggled at that panel so hard.
Also, like, they're not just falling off. They're like several dozens of meters off the waterfall when you turn the page.
Yeah, this isn't Schlitterbahn right here. This is a plummet.
He loses his pupils.
But yeah, now they're in this really cool place with these balls floating everywhere. I wonder why they call it the
Trial of Balls.
Trial of the Balls. And we find out that each one of these has like a different surprise in it. All right, I don't know if you'd say surprise or trap. They're traps. Like snake nests and explosions. And the Kami's, one of the Kami's vassals, Satori,
yes,
who is a ball himself, absolute ball of a man.
Yep.
And he kind of outlines the trial to them. He kind of kicks their ass and takes their boat, and he's like, the boat's going to keep going. It's going to keep floating down this river, and it'll eventually, I think he said, like, fall off Skypeia.
Jesus.
So he's like, you guys are going to have to, like, either defeat me, or I think it's like defeat me and traverse this landscape and get your boat back before it's gone forever.
So I like that, putting a little time limit on it. I want to bring up the 2 impact dials. First of all, impact dial is one of the coolest attacks. But, like, just look at how Oda's drawing these, man. This looks great.
Yeah, like, these impacts that he does are insane. And, like, we know that blunt force is probably, like, the least effective type of move to use against Luffy. So the fact that it hurts him as much as it does is, like, holy shit. And I didn't really... I think that's about where this volume leaves off, is him kicking their ass and explaining the trial to them.
Is that where you left off?
Yeah, I left off at the end of this volume.
Good
Everyone
deal.
buy Yu Yu Hakusho. It's
I
good.
don't know. It catches me off guard every time when you do this, but I like it every time.
Yeah, I always like seeing the manga it tells you to buy at the end of the volume.
So
But yeah,
that was a really good talk. I like how we like even without summarizing, that was like we just hit an hour right now. But like imagine if we didn't do that, we would have been like 120 and we would have all been tired. So I thought that was a much better way to do it.
yeah, I think we did it faster, and I had a lot more fun doing it because we got to like really focus on like the good stuff.
I think also coming up, it's gonna be it's a lot of battling. We've kind of exited out of but we've exited out of the more like everyone's talking and explaining things and motivational stuff. We're in the heat of battle now.
Mm-hmm.
So no one really wants to hear well, this guy punches this guy, and then this guy punches this guy. It's like we can just focus on the juicy bits.
But also, like the sticky notes are really good because like we did almost none of like, and then this happened, and then this happened. We were just like moving on to the next sticky note. So I like this.
I didn't realize what a fat stack of sticky notes I had until now, because now they're all pulled out of the volume, and I'm like, holy shit.
There was generally like way more stuff to talk about than I thought, but like there's a lot of good stuff in this beginning.
Oh man. I remember mentioning this to Willer as I started doing the sticky notes. It's interesting because this like let me notice a trend where the vast majority of my sticky notes ended up like sticking out of the bottom of the volume. Like most of the stuff that I found notable ended up being at the bottom of pages, and I think on those pages it's kind of like Oda treats pages like a micro chapter where the top of the page can be like an introduction and there's build up, and then characters usually have a really cool line or really cool like action or something at the bottom of the page. And I think that's why most of my sticky notes ended up being there. And obviously all pages are formatted differently, and that's not going to be true for all pages,
but there's definitely a trend.
Yeah.
That's a good analysis right there. I'll keep my eye out for that as well. That's One Piece, guys.
Set sail.
Skypeia's pretty long, so I think this will at least be like a 3 or 4 talk kind of scenario.
Yeah, it's
but it gets pretty action heavy, so I think we'll be good either way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
very action heavy. Some good breaks, some really good like hunking points on things, but a lot of action in this arc.
All right, let's Joe, give us a hypothetical before you leave.
All right. So you're walking through the woods.
Oh god.
And you come up to 4 trees. And these trees have different doors on them.
Okay.
One of the doors is a rabbit. The other door is a pumpkin. The other door is a Christmas tree. And the last door is a face of Donald Trump.
Okay, I was about to say I've seen these woods before. But...
I'll say as soon as you said the forest and the trees, I was like, is he gonna do Nightmare Before Christmas?
You did.
Anyways, you have to burn one of the trees.
Oh god.
Which one do you burn?
Joe, are you sure you want to record this right now?
I dye my skin green and I say, I hate Christmas, and I burn the Christmas tree.
There you go.
All right, Willer.
I gotta burn the presidential tree because I like the holidays more than I like any president, really. Like this isn't about a. It's not
the FBI. They're coming for you, man.
It's not about a. Oh shit! Oh fuck!